Right, we're now live. You may notice there's no countdown and we're running late, but that's because Idiot Boy here being idiot. So, you just have to live with Idiot Boy. But you listen, if you've been watching this for a while, if you've been a long time watcher, you know how much of an idiot I am. I'm just now proving it on a very live basis. But there we go. Listen, what we're going to do is we're going to give it a couple of seconds to let everyone get settled because, the notification will have just gone out. We've got one or two people joining us already. Clydene's saying hello. Finally got a notification here. The only thing is I'm watching on my iPad, so I can't read the other comments people have. So have a great day. Listen, Clyde, hopefully you're going to stick around and watch with us. Welcome along. But tell you what, we'll dive straight into this. And yes, New Year. Same idiotic setup to the whole thing. We'll get there, won't we? Right then. Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to Talkin Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. Listen, if anything is going to come together today, at least I've got my cup of tea. So I'm all sorted. I'm ready to go, kind of. New year, new start. Welcome along. Lots of people jumping in already with the comments because they're just ready to go. They're eager, which is great. Obviously, you've missed us over the course of your Christmas and your New Year. Happy festive season to you. Hopefully you did have a good one. Hopefully it was COVID-free. It was bountiful. It was plentiful. I hope you're all safe and well. If the dreaded lurgy did decide to descend on your household, hopefully his wishing, of course, from us to you, a swift and full recovery, of course. Let's see who's in the house already. We've got ourselves Andrew English, who's saying hello. Hello from London. Hello there. How the devil are you? Toby's joining us. Howdy, the man says. And we've got Clydene as well. Like you say, she's watching on her iPad, so she can't read too many of the comments, but we'll dive in certainly with anything that she has to say. Clydene saying hello. Going to get a cup of coffee now. Back in a second. Fantastic. And Leanne's joining us as well. Morning. Can't stay long. Not feeling well this morning. Not COVID, just unwell. Listen, Leanne, look after yourself as always. And if you need to tap out, do you look after yourself, all right? Because that's always the priority on this one. It's always about your show. If this is your first time watching, because I know that I'm streaming this to my personal account as well on Facebook and on Twitter. If it's your first time watching this is Talkin Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego, where we talk Comic-Cons, con culture, and all the stuff and nonsense that we get to enjoy at such shows. We've got a fair amount of stuff to catch up on off the back of some comments that came at me over the course of the last week or so, because I did post something about my kind of plans for 2022, cons coming up, things that are going to be happening. And I had one or two people reply, and still very much that anxiety about 2022, not only about the content that's going to be arriving at such shows, but also whether such shows should go ahead. We're going to kind of get into all of that a little bit later. But because what we usually do is have that kind of news and all that discussion stuff at the front end of the show, and then we have our guest at the back. But we have our guest pretty much up front and personal and ready to go straight off the bat. So I'm going to welcome the man along. We have ourselves Will Potter joining us. Hello there, Will. How the devil are you, sir?
I'm well, Leonard. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How was your Christmas? How was your Christmas? How was your New Year?
It's quiet, no one's really doing a great deal. Pretty much everyone I spoke to about New Year said, "What are your plans?" I said, "No plans." No, me neither. We're just glad to be safe and and be able to reach out to family. So that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think last year it was a case of we were mandated to stay indoors.
Mm-hmm.
This year was a case of everyone just went, you know what, we're going to stay indoors because we rather enjoyed it last year, just nice and quiet and staying out of arm's reach. And
yeah, and also a certain lack of trust with government messages. So
ain't that the truth? Yeah, I mean, certainly, I know we've got a fair number of people watching from the US. Here in the UK, indecisive is a word you can use. There are other sharper, more oblique words you can use as well. But yeah, indecisive is definitely the case. But listen, it's a pleasure to have you on. I know that I kind of reached out to the wider world and asked if there was anyone who would like to come on the show as the first one back of the new year. And you were very eager to come on, considering that you're in the very tail end of your Kickstarter campaign.
Absolutely, it's perfect timing for me. Thanks very much for having me on, because if anyone's been following me on social media, they'll be sick to death of me rabbiting on about Giza, which is the Kickstarter campaign for this Britpop comic I've been working on with Philip Bond. We've got I think it'll be 5 days in a few minutes actually left for the campaign. Well, so limited time for people to back this. So yeah, eager to sell it to the end.
Absolutely. We're going to dive into Giza. We're going to show everyone all about that, and we're definitely going to get into it. But I think first and foremost, just in case anyone is not aware of who you are, I think it's only fair that I ask my 3 questions first, because I asked 3 off the top of the bat. Number 1, this is a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego, which means, what beverage do you have to hand?
I didn't get the message. I'm sorry. I've got 2 beverages, and neither of them are tea. So I have water for first,
right,
and a nice glass of Primitivo. Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. We'll take adult beverages here on this show. I mean, I have been asked on a couple of occasions, when is it going to be adult beverage? When's it going to be Talkin Con after dark? I mean, I've got the cans of Jock's IPA up there.
Oh, lovely, yeah.
Once in a while, I do think about cracking because I did a review of one of the tins shortly after Thought Bubble, and I got slightly merry on one can. It's a delightful drop. That's very nice.
You know, you've made it when you've got a beer named. You've labelled a beer. Yeah.
Tell me about it. So that's question number 1. Question number 2: can you remember your first Comic-Con? Because I mean, we're going to do the full introduction to yourself in a minute, but you came into comics and Comic-Cons kind of laterally. You kind of came in from another creative field. So yeah,
kind of. Yeah, my first Comic Cons were the old Frank Plowright UCACs in around Russell Square. That would have been about 92. I was still in CUD. If people don't know, I'm the bass player in CUD, and I was at that point. But I was still very keen on comics, and I was hanging out with the Deadline crowd, and keen to pursue a career in comics at the same time. And when the band split up, I pursued it more seriously, moved to London, and I went to Comic Cons with my portfolios, but also to hang out with friends. So I got a lot of introductions through the Deadline crowd, and because of Deadline, I got to know Philip Bond, and actually earlier than maybe 1990. When Deadline first started, and CUD played their first birthday party, a walkabout in London. That's when I got to meet Steve Dillon and Brett Ewins and all that gang, who said great things about my work, gave me lots of good advice, and led to me on and off working in the comic industry.
Excellent. Well, that's like I say, we're going to get you just kind of you gave us a potted history there.
A long answer for a short question. Yeah.
No, that's fine. Because I mean, if there's one thing that I really am bitter about when it comes to Comic-Cons, is the fact that I missed the whole UCAC kind of period of cons. I mean, I came at cons really late. I mean, I think I went to a couple of Star Trek conventions at the Leeds Hilton, and me and a couple of mates went along and pointed and laughed and did all of that. But actually going properly to a Comic-Con, I mean, I've come at it really, really late. So I missed UCAC, and so it's only when I hear about the old days of just the British creatives all gathering together and having a blast.
I mean, yes, it was one of the most important things to achieve at the UCAC was to find out where everyone was staying, which hotel had the bar that everyone was meeting in. And yeah, it always seemed to be that the only way you could get a drink was to know someone staying there. So it was always Steve Dillon who let you borrow his room key number so you could order something. But also at that time, most of us were quite poor, so Steve Dillon bought the drinks as well. um, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going to kind of bring it back to Giza in a way here, but
Yeah, sure, go for it.
I do remember. I think it must have been about 94 or something when Jamie Hewlett was then really kind of taking off with Tank Girl, and the movie was on its way, and he would turn up with Justine from Elastica and Adamant, who I got to speak to, which at a comic convention, and that was the highlight. But I remember seeing Shelley Bond there at the time she was Shelley Roberg, and thinking, like, I pinpointed her as the person I needed to know and get to meet, but there was absolutely no way an unprofessional person like me, like a startup guy, was ever going to get close to her. So it's very weird being 20 years, or God, actually probably 30 years later, actually working directly with her on projects. It's taken a long time.
I'm really curious about Shelley Bond, because I mean, I've got to know her over the last decade, doing this show and going to conventions. Is she as manic back then, or is she diluted now? I'd love to know what she was like back then.
You should get her on the show. I'm sure she'd be happy to chat.
I love her.
Yeah, she's very like strong-willed and full of ideas and enthusiastic for comics as a medium as she ever was. And she has the freedom to do the comics exactly as she would like them now. And she was totally the inspiration for Giza. In that, if anyone knows her, knows that she's really into British music, especially mod music, of the Jam, the Clash, and Britpop. So after I'd worked with Philip on and Shelley on other titles, I pitched this idea, which I can go into later.
No, tell you what, yeah, okay. Let's get the third question out of the way then, because we'll definitely go into the.
I mean, I'm gagging. You can tell I'm gagging to talk about it.
You can tell. Well, you can also tell that it's like 5 days to go, and you're ready to. You're in that final. Okay, that finish line is just there. It's really there.
And then we can relax, and then we can produce the comic.
Absolutely.
That's the easy
we've got this. I mean, we've got a couple of comments that have been coming up. Clyde Nee, I love Philip Bond and Shelley. Who doesn't? I mean,
who doesn't?
We've had them on this show. They're joys. We've got Into the Blue Mister. Got a lot of love from Philip Bond from his wide work world in Deadline. And Into the Blue Mister says, the UCACs were glorious. We were very spoiled in the late 80s and early 90s. Yeah, that's what I've been hearing. But tying into that, the question number 3, which I usually give my guests when I welcome along, is: can you remember any of those wobbly knee moments? Those moments when you have met a hero in comics or creative endeavors, and all of a sudden the brain has just taken a sharp detour to the left. A little bit mealy now.
Well, actually, I mentioned comic wise, I would say Mebius. I queued up.
Whoa!
Yeah, I saw him. He gave his Tai Chi demonstration on stage, and I queued up to get to meet him. And obviously, it's very brief, but he was doing sketches, and so somewhere back here, I've got a Mebius book with an original sketch in, and I got him to draw on a postcard for me. I don't know if you know Ed Bagwell. Sadly passed away a couple of years ago. Well, I was a good friend of his at the time, and I knew he was a big Mebius fan, so I got a sketch and a postcard for him as well. And they're just lovely pieces. The guy was just so sublime and peaceful. It was great to meet him. But in terms of wobbly knees, it was that Adamant story I mentioned, because I was a huge fan of him when I was at school, and to then be like, have Jamie come over and say, "Hey, Adam wants to talk to you." I said, "What? Me? Why?" And Adam was just the most charming, friendly guy who'd heard of Cud and talked about as supporting him on a future tour.
Oh, wow.
And I heard these stories that he was he'd actually entertained Jamie and his friends over dinner once, and he gave everyone equal time, and was just a joy. And through the whole conversation, my head was just spinning, saying, I can't wait to tell the rest of the band about this. I can't wait to tell anybody I know about this conversation. It was not about listening. It was all about, wow, I'm talking to Adam Ant.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Well, I mean, listen, you just dropped two big names there. I mean, as a DJ, don't forget as well, everybody who's watching this, don't forget, Will is, I am the natural enemy of Will, being a DJ. Of course.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
No,
No, you're not. You're the natural, unless you play our records.
Oh, no, well, of course I play your records. That's not the problem. As somebody who has, no, this is, God Almighty, I've just suddenly had a complete mind fart. Fergal Sharkey. I have actually gotten into a fight with Fergal at a plaza in London because he'd gone along to talk about the importance of live performance and the musicians going and everyone who's buying these speakers and going out to work, and had one or two things to say about the DJs in the room, which at the end of the day at Plaza, it was about 90% of DJs, and we all just went, but we're playing your records. Yeah, you're taking the jobs away from us us proper musicians. And I went, oh, okay. So yeah, we had a delightful.
I don't see as the enemy at all. I guess I think it's quite cheeky that you can just take a USB stick and then travel to Ibiza and stay in a lovely hotel and just plug it into a laptop and then just go, everybody in the house, and then take the money, as opposed to carrying loads of guitars and amps and drum kits in the back of a van and traveling up and down the M1. But well, yeah, as
someone who's carried his fair share of 12-inch singles around, I'd like to think I've done my mileage in that one. But no, I mean, this is where I ask for your kind of a potted history. We've kind of given it on a little bit of that, but perhaps someone who doesn't know who Cud is, and Will Potter, explain who you are, sir.
Well, yeah, I'm a former art student who joined a group of mates in Leeds in the late 80s to form a band called Cud, and we were very lucky. We got Peel sessions very early on, record deals. We toured the world. We made records right up to about 1994, 95. And we got back together again recently, and so we're essentially a heritage indie band now, playing the hits and occasionally releasing new material. But in the meantime, my other job since the band split up has been as a writer and editor, an occasional artist. And I came to London. I broke into the comic business doing mostly licensed characters, Cindy, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, stuff like that. And then it's been mostly writing. And then recently I got involved with Shelley Bond's Black Crown imprint and did a strip with Philip Bond for that called, it was basically the Cud story, but told from the point of view of a retired bass player and singer locked away in an old folks home. It's a kind of cross between I don't know, it was kind of like the Cud and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, really. And since then I've been doing a lot more comic writing, and as well as writing some kids books and serious books and playing gigs.
If there was a perfect fit, not only for yourself and also for Shelley as well, it was Black Crown. I mean, what she did with that, I mean, just the whole creation of a world based around a pub, which was just it was just a joy. I mean, I came in via Kid Lobotomy. That was that was my inroad.
That was the first title, yeah,
absolutely.
No, it's great. It would have been nice to have had much more of that. But I mean, I think what she's doing with Off Register is, in a way, a continuation of that, and getting to work with whoever she wants and launch it in her own way. And always with lots of extras, lots of loot bags and T-shirts and all kinds of wonderful extras.
Yeah. One or two people are jumping in saying hi. We've got Shane Chebsey saying hello. Hopefully you and Shane are aware of each other's work.
I should read yes, I should read the messages more. I love, I saw Adam Ant in San Diego, 2013.
Yeah, had to leave the attendees party to go and see him. Yeah, we remember this. Yeah, we're not bitter. And we've got Clyde Neat. I think Adamant is going to be touring this year. I remember
He
reading
is.
something about this.
He's
He is.
playing near me in Guildford.
Yep,
Yeah.
he's man's back out on the road. Good to
Mm.
see him there. I mean, but just to double track then back onto your comics reading. I mean, you mentioned Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is what I would consider mainstream fare, considering the kind of books that you put out and the kind of like say the deadline connection early doors.
Mm.
What is your comics reading? Where do you go when it comes to your books?
Well, I came in via, like a lot of people in the UK, through reading Marvel reprints, the Mighty Wonder Marvel, Spider-Man Comics Weekly, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of my early stuff is that superhero stuff, but now it tends to be more semi-autobiographical stuff, the Love and Rockets kind of era stuff. Sadly, I don't read as many comics as I would like to. I don't really find the time, because I'm writing a lot of factual books at the moment. So my library is I've got a stack of books which is all about the history of mankind, believe it or not.
Oh wow!
So, I'm currently midway through writing a history of humankind. It's I'm a writer for hire. I'll do anything, but it's a fascinating subject, as you'd imagine.
But yeah, I mean that's as big as it gets, I suspect. I mean, as big a topic as it gets.
But yeah, I think things that I read and things that I enjoy. It is the work of Mebius, and Hernandez brothers and Daniel Klaus and people like that.
Wow, excellent stuff. Very eclectic. That's what exactly the way that I think same drill as yourself. I mean, I came in very kind of that very predictable route. You've Beano Dandy, Star-Lord to 2000 AD, through
Yeah.
into which way did I go? Warrior, Crisis, Justice League International, because I developed a very, very sarky sense of humor. So yeah, very much the Justice League International vibe. And the thing is, I came in as well via the worst crossover event in comics history, which was Millennium, which was run by DC, which was bloody awful. It was a terrible, terrible crossover. If it's barely remembered, it's remembered too much. It's awful.
I would mention we haven't run it, but for quite a while, part of my job, I was the editor of the DC graphic novel collection over here.
Right.
So I was, and I still am to an extent, choosing titles for that and the Legend of Batman collection.
Oh right, okay.
So not that I've read them all, but yeah, I'm trying to be selective from that whole kind of period pre the new 52.
Yeah, I can imagine
what we can run over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But certainly,
That's very familiar. It's a very, very familiar route, and I was older than you, but I was also following that kind of trajectory.
Yeah, and then like you say, over the last certainly the last 10 years, my reading has gotten a lot more eclectic, and it's gotten. I still try and follow as much as the mainstream, but yeah, the indies and certainly self-published. That's where I'm really kind of getting a lot of energy at the moment. Which then brings us on to your current project. You're clearly very busy, but you've managed to squeeze in a Kickstarter, which is Giza. So let's we've tempered it, but now let's get into it. Let's talk about the thing. Giza. This is created with yourself and Philip Bond. Who approached who? Who came to who with this?
Well, as I said, it was inspired by Shelley's love of the period, and so I pitched this idea about a band, basically of also-rans, who were around at the time of the real Britpop period. So they were around at the events, like a kind of Ruttles, where they're very much like Suede, Blur, Oasis. They develop and have a lot of the same traits, so they can in a way be a cipher for those bands, but they exist with those bands, so they bump into them. So there are plentiful cameos in here, lots and lots of Easter eggs for Britpop fans who remember a record, remember an event. I've been reading the biographies from the period, and I put together a really detailed timeline for all the major bands plus Giza, so I can slot them into it.
Wow.
So I pitched this idea to Shelley. She loved it, and then she found the perfect artist just at her elbow, who could deliver it. And frankly, yeah, he's the perfect artist for it. He was around at the time. Both of us hanging out with members of Blur and whoever, and he can draw a mean gig. He's been doing the Good Mixer pub and making it look alive. It's just characterful, full of humor and charm, and it just works perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of archetypes here which I
Yes,
recognise.
yes. You see
Very
here,
much.
this was part of it. The idea that this character Martin Bland, the singer from Giza, had ambitions to succeed, and he moved to London when he read about Suede being the biggest thing in music. So he kind of adopted that identity, which you see in the first picture on the left. And then kind of Blur moved in and all that kind of Fred Perry look, and he took that on. And then finally, obviously, it's a kind of the gestural image of Oasis there with the park and everything like that. So he takes on these personalities, but doesn't quite make it as big as the bands that he's kind of mimicking or hoping to pass himself off as.
Yeah. I mean, the artwork's amazing. I mean, I love the fact that it's created. It's a square format. It's
It's a
very much
7-inch
like,
single size. That's
that's
the
the
idea.
thing. That's the joy of it. It really is. It goes all the way in on the aesthetic. I mean, in fact, do I have them to hand? No, they're under the stairs. I know. I've got Philip Bond's the 12-inch ink.
Oh,
Because
ink, yes.
I got the Kickstarter for that, and the fact that those come in a 12-inch sleeve, they're the
I
12-inch.
do have it handy if you want me to demonstrate it.
Go for it. No,
Yeah.
I got mine. You get number one, I get number two. I'm sure I've got them like to hand. They are around. Where have I put them? Oh, they're up there. That's it. They're up here. I've got mine. Hang on, I've got mine as well. So you got yours. This is yours. Hang on. Let me just bang us on in this format so you can see it. Yeah, this is the format that Philip Bond did his. There you go. Which one have you got there?
Sorry about that. I just pulled out the wrong record. This was ink. This was ink.
You got number one, and there you go. There's number two. So there you go.
Also included in this this is very similar to how the finished Giza will appear.
In that regard, yes.
This is slightly smaller, but yes.
You got a different colour than me. You got a different colour than mine.
This is number one.
Ah, right. Okay, I didn't get number one. Okay.
So yeah, that's how it worked. So yes, it's the whole idea. It's like of a band that really existed. So this is in effect their single.
Yeah.
Well, the Giza. Here's the mini version of the Giza that I took to Thought Bubble.
Well, yeah. I mean, we'll get into that in a minute because it's a way of getting the word out about this kind of project. You've got yourself the Cud fan base as well, which you can also tap into, and this it's very much in their wheelhouse. So they're invested. Then you've got the comics fans as well that have come from, like you say, your Deadline history and all the books that you've done previously. But then again, it really is a case of, and then of course the Shelley Bond and Philip Bond connection as well. That's going to generate some momentum. It's a case of then, how do you market this? Why did it come to Kickstarter to get this book out?
Well, I don't know like why Kickstarter. It's obviously that we don't have a publisher as much, but we didn't pitch it to a publisher at all. We wanted it to be totally in our control. Had we pushed it to a publisher, they probably would have wanted it in a regular comic format. But this gave us the time to work on it in however we wanted, say exactly what story we wanted, had complete control over the back, the front. There are no adverts in it at all, apart from the fake adverts for the band and other records from the period. Philip's been great at doing like mini adverts for the singles and tours. We're doing. This is the whole thing about being a band, creating a band in a real environment. So I've written reviews in the style of enemy journalists,
Ah,
interviews. We've got real slag offs from the press from the period. We've got
well, I mean,
flyers.
let's bring that up as well, because this was one of my favorite ads.
Oh
Or
yeah,
one
yeah,
of my favorite tags.
yeah.
Um,
I reached out to Rick Witter from Shed 7 to ask him for a quote on Giza. Again, it's this whole idea of like the Ruttles, if anyone's seen it, is a parody of the Beatles. And they have genuine rock stars from the period, such as Mick Jagger and Paul Simon, quoted on the Ruttles and saying, how useless they were and how they ripped off their music. So I wanted Rick to have that same attitude and just complain about how annoying and crap Giza were. So he delivered the goods, and it was really funny to do that. And the hope is that Giza will continue, saying, I have written more than one issue, and I would like to get more quotes and more involvement from other Britpoppers. Yeah, in the same way.
that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. So yeah, I mean, I don't think we kind of really answered that question then. So why? I mean, Kickstarter as the platform itself, because I mean, Kickstarter itself has gotten itself some pretty bad press over the last 2
Yes,
years
that
about
was
this.
that was really bad timing for us. We obviously not very happy with cryptocurrency. No interest in NFTs and all that crap. From an environmental point of view, really. But Shelley had a lot of success with Kickstarter with Femme Magnifique and other titles. So we had the contacts. We knew how it worked. So we as a way to launch it seemed perfect setup for us. But just as we were about to press the launch button, they announced this cryptocurrency news, which is I was like, oh, it's difficult. It's not happening quite yet, and hopefully they will listen to creatives and people who've been using Kickstarter and backtrack on it.
Fingers crossed.
Because it's also, it will, going on, we'll have that debate. We do want to launch more comics and books, and we'll have to have that whole debate later as to how and where we do it. But we kind of set ourselves up on Kickstarter, and we'll see it through.
Okay. I mean, off register is very much an established site now. I mean, like you say, with the projects that Shelley's done on the site, it's very much a case of it works really nicely under her brand. And I'm wondering why you didn't perhaps just launch it as a kind of project under that off register. I mean, was the funding for the project really that vital to need Kickstarter to make that engine happen?
Yes, otherwise I would have had to pay for it. Basically, yeah. Again, yeah, of course. I mean, all of the off-register titles have been launched through Kickstarter,
Sure.
and crowdfunding is the way it's operating at the moment. I'm obviously, if a publisher takes an interest in Giza and approaches us, we'll have that discussion. But at the moment, the way it's working directly connected with the fans, we can and the complete creative control. We're very happy doing it this way. It's time consuming, and I admit that. And just doing the PR for it is, quite stressful. As is just like constantly refreshing the page to see if you've earned another couple of dollars. But at the moment, we're happy with the setup, and we'll continue.
Okay. I'm going to very quickly disappear and get some the power lead, which I've completely forgotten to plug into my laptop. But in the meantime,
you're running out of power. You're going to disappear.
Always.
Shall I keep people entertained?
The thing is, this will give you the chance to talk about this while I kind of nip away. I will be able to hear you.
You can run the video if you want. Run the video.
We can do. Absolutely, we can run the video. But I mean, I might as well. I said that I was going to ask the question. You could answer that because we've got this section. This image here of the character designs, and yet, let's be fair, the color of Britpop as well was pretty important as well. It was the same. I mean, that shirt that is being worn right there in the left hand side, that is Jarvis to an absolute fucking tea. At which point, then, I mean, we've got the image there from the ash can up on the screen, and yeah, what we've seen with his 12-inch mixers as well. He's very much Philip's very much an embracer of that black and white ethos. What's the book going to be? Is it black and white or color? What's the
It's black and white inside, color cover, black and white inside. It's just the way it kind of ran out, really. Philip started to deliver these inks, and they're so beautifully balanced in black and white. It worked. It felt there was no need to run to color, and running to color would have meant, obviously, more expense, more people involved, and it would have taken a lot longer to get finished, I think. So we're sticking with this, and we like the style of it. It does have that kind of retro feel.
Yeah.
So there's always the possibility at some point that we might produce a volume.
I mean, like I said,
later. Who knows?
I showed those color character designs, but it works so really well in black and white. It just looks amazing. So I'll tell you what, we'll run the video and we'll come back. Yeah, everybody, this is Geezer. That's a very cool backing track there. Did you manage to get a band in to record that for you? Or?
Even if we're claiming it's Geezer, I will come clean, and actually it's the guitarist in Cud, Mike Dunphy, who took the challenge. Basically, I told him that I was going to try and write a fake Britpop tune, and he said, "I could do that." I said, "Okay, all right then, go on then." And I knew he would do a much better job, and he absolutely did. He said he was inspired by Blur's Tracy Jacks there, but he called it Pasty Shack, like Cornish Pasty Shack. I don't know why, but then there is a bit of concern that Geezer might take off in such a big way that Cud might have to move in this direction and act as a Geezer tribute act.
That would be awesome. That would be amazing. We got a whole bunch of comments coming up. Everybody, if you have any questions for Will, do dive in. We've got Solicitor Smeg. Looks like a modern day Ron Howard as a teen. I'm hearing Sunday, Monday, Happy Days in my head. I get it. There's definitely that vibe to it. Into the Blue Mister. Didn't the Ruttles do All You Need Is Cash?
That's it. That's exactly it. Yeah, it was the Ruttles. It was like Neil Innes, who was the music writer for Monty Python, with Eric Idle.
I came into the Ruttles late. I came in via the Python stuff. So that's how I knew Neil Innes.
It's a genius piece, and the music is just spot on parodies of the band. George Harrison was actually in the Ruttles documentary as well. So he was absolutely behind it and loved the joke.
Absolutely. Also, the comments regarding NFTs and crypto might as well be labeled as gambling. We have made our thoughts clear on this particular topic on the show before, so we'll leave that one alone. Clyde Nee, funny how there are musicians in comics. Steve Niles had a band, and now he's a top in horror comics. He is, absolutely.
It's also, it seems to be a fact that most of the comic artists are drummers. I'm thinking of Charlie Adlard and Dean Ormston with their drummers in their bands. It just seems to be. Is it Jock plays drums as well? I think, doesn't he?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, because he shared an image of him in the studio, I think.
Yeah, there's a bunch as well that play guitar. I mean, there's a definite crossover between. I mean, I think it's not the first observation that musicians want to create comics, and comic artists and comic creators want to be rock stars.
Yeah, that was absolutely the feeling when I was working on Deadline. That, you know, for me, I was a big fan of all these artists, and they were like a fan of Cud, and it's like I couldn't believe they would like Cud because they were like comic, they were like huge comic stars, you know. But yeah, there's now, especially with Off Register, there's such a lovely crossover. And
I mean, she did the book about student radio, and
yes,
it was
yes,
just so perfect for her. I mean, you could just
heavy
tell that
rotation, yeah.
Heavy Rotation was, it was just
Mm,
an amazing book, an
mm,
amazing anthology, sorry. And just these great articles, and you could tell there was so much love for not just comics but just music and that kind of period
mm.
in time. And the fact that it's almost like the Brits alliance to it. It really is kind of I mean, it's perfect for it to be on Off Register, because it has that direct lineage to everything else that Shelley's involved in, and that's amazing. Into the Blue Mist, I prefer Philip's black and white work. I'm struggling to remember any of his color work. Maybe Kill Your Boyfriend for DC.
Yes, yeah, that was
Yeah,
coloured.
yeah, and also obviously the work he did for Black Label. Sorry, uh,
Black Crown.
Black Crown, of course. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, his black and white stuff is so evocative,
Mm,
and it certainly leans towards this. Like you say, there's ambitions for the book beyond this Kickstarter project,
mm.
um, which I always find that element interesting, because you obviously are wanting the project to keep going, but how much it's a case of them focusing and channeling all your energy into this one volume, the first one, to get it up and out of the gate. I mean, how's that been in terms of running the campaign, especially during this very difficult period in history? People are being pulled from all directions emotionally. I mean, how's it been to kind of just run the campaign? Has it been almost like an oasis for yourself
Uh,
in these trying
it's okay. I
times?
was well, Giza's been ticking over in the background for pretty much the whole time of COVID. So you know, I have a full time job as well. So
Sure.
I've been working from home. So I've been writing and editing Giza on commutes, and then suddenly having a little bit more time at home to focus on this, that's been great. Um, I think for Philip and Shelley, they've spent a lot of time indoors. Shelley's been working all hours on filth and grammar, so it's a little bit, yeah, a little bit kept the outside is kept at bay, and we're very focused, but and very pale probably from the lack of sunlight. But in terms of launching it now, it's less COVID and more to do with Christmas. I think that affected it. It's a very weird time to launch through the Christmas period.
But oddly
It
enough,
would
then,
the only thing that would, and obviously you were there as well. The only thing that made it a little bit frustrating is the inability to meet up with people and talk
sure.
about it. So it was great to be able to go to Thought Bubble and share the mini comic and the flyers that we put together, and get people enthused about it and prepared for its launch. But apart from that, yeah, it's thanks, thank you. Through podcasts we're able to reach out as well. Um, it is, and social media. That's the only way we can launch it in this way.
Sure. If anything, the timing kind of works out really well, because you get Christmas out of the way, you get New Year out of the way. Everyone's wanting kind of like a new, fresh year, and we're into into the first week of 2022. Everyone's just like, right, okay, fresh new stuff. Let's get new, fresh stuff. Here we go.
I thought it was like everyone comes back after New Year and said, "Oh, all that money I've spent, I can't afford anything. The first thing the first casualty is comics."
Well, you know what? I've been the case of no. I want to crack on now. I mean, I've heard about it. I mean, the flyers have come out with a new Jock book that comes out in February. So that's No Angels. That I'm really excited about. I mean, I'm excited about a new year and new projects. So I think maybe that's kind of. I mean, that's kind of, maybe it's just me. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
For me, honestly, I've been working on Geese for quite some time, and I admit I've written the equivalent of a graphic novel of Geezer.
Wow.
So this has been on the board for a while, and it just needed Shelley and Philip to be freed up from their various other projects. So I've been, chomping at the bit for this to come out, and so happy it's going to happen now. The
Well, I mean,
campaign hit its target in the first 2 days, so it's definitely happening. So we're now at a point where we're just happy for more and more support, so we can improve on it, add more pages, and get it out to more and more people.
yeah,
And then hopefully there'll be enough enthusiasm for us to launch another issue. So at the moment, this issue is meant to be self-contained, but there is a story that goes beyond
yeah.
it.
How many
We'd love to tell.
how many pages very quickly?
40 pages.
Right.
This and
Just so
it's not just comic strip. It's mostly comic strip, but there are also all these. There are lyrics. There are say reviews written from the period, interviews and flyers and posters for so it creates this whole world of Britpop and Geezer.
Excellent. You kind of touched on it, so let's talk about November, heading to Harrogate and having a great time at Thought Bubble. I mean, we've been talking about this and other comic conventions on this show. Obviously, comic conventions are kind of like the focus of it. So we've been talking about how we felt. I mean, I personally felt very safe at Thought Bubble. I went to Wales Comic Con a couple of weeks later. Didn't feel felt safe there, despite the efforts of the organizers. It was the attendees that really kind of let the side down on that. But then I've been hearing so many comments over the last couple of days as well. People are just gagging to get back in front of people. What was Thought Bubble like for yourself, and especially when you had Geezer in your back pocket, ready to show people?
Well, I was very happy at Thought Bubble. It was, it's always been a great event. It's the first one I went to that wasn't in Leeds. And the last one I did in Leeds, I was actually a guest, and I joined Shelley and Philip promoting Black Crown. So this one, I was wandering around a free agent, and actually it was lovely. And like you, I felt really safe. All the checks and the mask wearing, everyone was really well behaved, apart from obviously later in the pub. But actually the pubs were quite quiet as well. And yeah, so everyone felt really safe. It's a lovely inclusive event. It wasn't about egos and big stars. It was everyone was just really happy to see each other, and after such a long gap. And everyone was really happy with and keen on what I showed them with Geezer, and I was really pleased to have something new to show people.
Yeah. Like I say, I think everyone was really happy to also, like I say, promote new material at the show. In that regard, what's been the? I don't even have to ask the question, to be honest. But what was the reaction that you got? What were the reactions that you got? Certainly from a Thought Bubble UK centric comics crowd of a certain age. Let's be fair.
Well, because of Geezer, there were obviously a lot of those people who are big fans of Deadline. Really happy to see Philip doing some comic stuff again. A lot of people who are fans of Britpop, so it was in a way targeting a certain age group. So all that crowd were just like saying, this comic has been written just for me. So yeah, we absolutely catering for them. Otherwise, it was actually some new people who obviously had the foggiest idea who I was and the foggiest idea who Philip was, and they thought, "Oh, what's this? What's this?" They fit. Well, actually, this art's really good. Have you thought about doing it professionally? Yeah. So yeah, just reminding people that Philip Bond has a very good track record, and they should seek out his other work.
Yeah, no pun intended there, of course.
Yeah, one thing I'll mention actually in relation to the comic convention is that Cud were on tour at the same time, either side of it. So it's really interesting to see how Thought Bubble dealt with the coronavirus through that period compared to gigs. Now, I was going to gigs, and there were pretty much no checks in the small venues we were there. People weren't wearing masks. We kept people at bay. We normally have stage invasions, and we asked that nobody get on stage with us because we were playing every weekend, and had any of us got a positive test, the whole rest of the tour would have been cancelled. And thankfully, we got through it to the very end. And as far as we know, very few fans caught COVID, and those that did had very light symptoms. And you kind of feel like we got away with it. But it's a very different feeling at Thought Bubble. There, you felt in a very, very safe environment, not taking risks.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got like I say, a couple more comments. We've got solicitors make musicians that are good with their hands, drummers and guitarists. Good at art. Makes sense. Absolutely. Clyde in Knee, love Cornish pasty shack. Yes, it's a great title, is that? And yeah, she's posted Geezer to Facebook.
Thank you. Anyone who can share it, back it, it's all appreciated. As I say, we're running close to the end now. We just got 5 days, so yeah. Spread the news. That's what I'm here for.
If you, I mean, are you aware of who Clyde in Knee is, by the way?
No.
Right, Clyde in Knee is the person that runs Artist Alley at San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh, okay, all right.
So if there's anybody that could possibly invite Philip over and yourself to San Diego to promote Geezer, which I'm sorry would be absolutely awesome to have a Britpop comic on the floor at San Diego Comic-Con.
I'd love to. I've never done any of the US comic conventions. Never been to any of those.
That would be incredible.
I'd love to try that. And obviously, I've got an open invitation to hang out with the Bonds. So yeah, that would be a really, really good excuse.
Yeah. And then you've got on a more UK note, you've got Shane Chebsey saying would love to invite the creative team to ICE Birmingham 2022 in September. The book looks great. So there you go.
Get in touch.
This is the magic that I like to perform here on the show. This is great. Let's have you at ICE. That'd be amazing. What are like you say, you've got the plans for further books down the line. I mean, what would be the timetable? What would you see for 2022 and certainly for Geezer?
Well, the plan is with Geezer, we're going to get it out in April. It's written. Philip's about halfway through drawing it now, and as soon as we hit that first target, he knows it's happening, so he's full on. And yeah, I would hope to get at least another, maybe 2 issues put out there. But again, that depends on demand, on the success of this, and also other projects. As I said, for me, I'm writing other material, and I do have some other pictures I want to push and try to get done. But anything Geezer, I'll be involved in writing backup material and editing and pushing and promoting with Philip. So I do hope there'll be more. I'd like to see it through. The stuff in part 5 that I really can't wait to see Philip draw.
I mean, the thing about Britpop and Manchester and the indie scene, as somebody who kind of documented it as a DJ from almost from the outside, as it were, because my connection to Britpop, I think I was an Inspiral Carpets kind of guy. So I was very much I was the art school lads. So I came in that way. But I mean, certainly just playing the tracks out, there's this real definite. I mean, it's right there in the page that we showed earlier. We've gone there. That timeline of Manchester. It's really and Britpop. It's a real there's a real kind of sense of parentheses around it, if that makes sense. Which kind of makes the question where you're planning for the parts going in. Are we talking outside of the parentheses, as it were?
Yeah, well, without giving too much away, the first issue starts in '94 with a bang. It's right in the middle of peak Britpop, and Geezer have some minor success and some record company backing. But then there are some flashbacks, and Martin's roots do come from the Manchester scene. And there, he was right at the end of that and failing to succeed in that way with his band Glimmer, which and then he moved south and he set up the band, and then he just tagged on to all of the trends that took him through the Britpop period. So he will see it through, should see it through to like the Spice Girls era. And yes, and he did manage to gate crash the Tony Blair Call Britannia party at number 10. So that's a scene at the very end I would love Philip to draw. But we've got a long way to go before we get there. There's a lot of events in Britpop. There's the whole Blur versus Oasis thing. There's confrontations in the Good Mixer pub. There's a lot of story to tell, and a US tour. All these kind of things to come. Should the first issue succeed, and we can continue.
So long as there's a appearance from the KLF, who had their own thoughts and opinions about music of that period, and also just interaction. Yeah, listen, I'll take a beating as a DJ, just kicking the crap out of a DJ in a back alley. I think I'll be happy with that. You know what? We kind of deserved it at the time, so I have no problem with that. But I mean, the book looks amazing. I mean, let's bring up the URL for everyone to go to, because, like I say, we're talking days away now.
Yes,
you got the backing with like I say, the first two days of the campaign. Mm-hmm. What is this going to then allow yourself and the creative team to do moving forward?
Oh, it'll allow us to actually spend the time.
Get the book done, obviously.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Most of it is to fund the time Philip needs to draw and finish drawing this issue, and hopefully there'll be enough to have him start work on a second, which we can then look towards launching. As it is, typically with Kickstarter, you have stretch goals. So we started out with a 36-page comic. Now it's 40 pages. And if we hit the next stretch goal, we've got a record bag just from the record company of Giza, and there's this secondhand record shop which appears in the comic. So it's all part an in-universe bag. And plenty more we can do with this. We've got loads of extra merch and T-shirts and stuff we want to do. It's like we're promoting a real band and want to get them.
I'm just going to say, it seems like a lot of work, but it seems like the payoff is going to be so cool. I think that's what I think everyone's really excited about.
Absolutely. I mean, Philip's designed record sleeves for this band. I'd love, if we could reach a certain target, I'd love to be able to print some record sleeves and slip the comic inside it. But lots of plans like that. And certainly, if it goes beyond this, yes, we'll have a lot more upper sleeves for, different, band shirts and backstage passes and all kinds of stuff.
Well, when it comes down to the summer, when we have the release, or indeed the launch party for the graphic novel, for the full set, when we have Giza live on stage,
the 40th anniversary of Britpop,
40th anniversary of Britpop. Giza live on stage, I would be more than happy to see you up there as the bass player of this particular band. Listen, Will, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much indeed for coming on, talking about the book to us.
Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No worries.
I'll see you around at Comic Con, I'm sure.
Well, that's the plan. Fingers crossed. I mean, we're going to get into that in a minute, about 2022 and where we can possibly see cons going in that regard. But Kickstarter.com/projects/off-register-press/Giza. Where can people find you and follow you? Because there's also Giza's got its own Twitter account.
Martin of Giza has got a Twitter account. He's not used to social media, and you can tell from following him. So he's all that's kind of well, you've got it slightly wrong there. Welcome, you've got Will with one L there. It comes around.
Oh, sorry,
special guest Will Potter, at Will Cud, but Will with two L's.
In that case, I'm going to hide. I can hide that really quickly and just go save and show.
So you can find me there, and you can find us through the Giza link there. And Giza, Martin's got a URL like at Giza Blimey is his Twitter handle. Yeah, and he's got a lot more to say than me on the subject of the 90s and Britpop.
Very much worth checking out, everyone, if you can. Like I say, Clydine shared her bits and pieces to her.
That was a quick fixing.
Absolutely. I try my best. I'm nippy with the keyboard. I do my best. And Shane has invited you to Ice Birmingham in September. I mean, I think the story of Giza through 2022 is going to be quite a sprawling epic, and I'm looking forward to seeing it go forward. Best of luck with the final couple of days of the campaign. Hopefully we've shown a little bit more light, certainly for my audience and for anyone who's watching. Do check out the Kickstarter campaign. Will, again, thank you so much indeed for joining us. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, sir.
Thank you very much. Take care, everyone.
Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Right.
Bye-bye. Oh, man. Kickstarter.com/projects /off-register press /geezer. Well worth checking out because, like I say, I mean, the artwork alone. I mean, let's look at this thing. It looks amazing. What? Not only that, but can I? I think I've got. This is the ash cam, which has been handed out, and yeah, how Will has pasted it and how it's written, and yeah, it's brilliant. It's really cool, and if anything, it's got some real attitude and vibe. And it's just great. Loving it. Kickstarter.com/projects /off-register press /geezer. Do go check that out. Excellent stuff indeed. Right. Couple of changes which we're going to announce very quickly, because at this point it's now an hour into the show. I usually try and keep it to an hour. And what we've been doing up to now is in the previous episodes from last year, what we've been doing is running the first first half an hour for our Patreon supporters, and then taking it just to Patreon. And that's never really sat well with me. So I'm going to change it a little bit. What we're actually going to do from here on in, if you are watching this live, thank you very much indeed. Excellent stuff. Thank you very much indeed for joining us and watching live. What we are going to do when we leave the stream, I'm going to make the stream private for the 3 days, except for the Patreon link. So anyone who's watched or is on a Patreon supporter can come back, rewatch it, enjoy the show again, and watch it at a later date, perhaps. Or maybe you can't watch live. If you're a Patreon supporter, you'll be able to watch it at a later date. For everybody else, I'm going to unprivate the videos as of Wednesday. So that's the way I'm going to try to run things. I'm constantly trying to adapt and evolve because I want more people to enjoy the show and enjoy it in its full format. But if you're watching live, that's the way we're going to be going. Okay. In my description of the episode, however, I did talk about what we're expecting from 2022 when it comes to conventions, because I think it's safe to say there's been a lot of anxiety. When it came to the back end of the year, it felt like that anxiety was easing. There was a real sense of maybe we can get out of the other side of this intact. Maybe we can kind of start rebuilding from 2022. And then Omicron kicked in, and then the festive season, and then people did meet up over the course of the festive season. And then my timeline went slightly stupid. And I think a lot of people have noticed a lot of their friends on their timeline contracting COVID, getting ill, being afraid that they've passed it on to their friends and family. And it then becomes very apparent we are not at the other side of this at all. At which point I then posted what my plans were for 2022. Looking at Wales Comic Con, going to be on a panel host. I've been graciously invited back to that. We've got ICE Birmingham. Fingers crossed Shane's going to officially invite me to that one, but I think that's the case. But I believe I'm officially invited to the Comic Salopia in Shrewsbury. So fingers crossed that's going to come across. That's going to be a great show. But all the shows that I've been announcing that I'm going to be taking part in are from April onwards. And again, I'm back to that position where it's a case of whether I feel confident and whether the attendees feel confident about attending shows again. The fact that we're still feeling apprehensive about April, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. And then you have to ask the question where the face of comic conventions are and how they look in 2022, and who's going to be attending in terms of the guests, because are we going to be seeing a repeat of Thought Bubble for a while, where a lot of the American and international guests didn't attend, and the Americans are cancelling of a certain breed? I did try and keep a track on the American attendees of Wales Comic Con, especially those that were incredibly paranoid about catching COVID here in the UK. There was a certain actress that attended Wales that was absolutely petrified of catching COVID while she was here. So then you have that element, and then you have the way that certainly when it comes to multimedia films and television, the studios, because they haven't had the outlet to attend a convention, and even before COVID, they were starting to scale back. Now it's then a case of, do they need the conventions? Do they need us anymore? Because they've now established their own promotion inroads. I think that the question that I'm trying to skirt around here is, what is the face of San Diego Comic-Con in July, middle of the year, one of the biggest, well, if not the biggest, pop culture cross-media celebrations on the planet? At which point you then ask, is Universal going to show up? Is 20th Century Fox? Is Warner Brothers? Is Lucasfilm? Is Netflix? Is Amazon? Do they need the comic conventions anymore? And I want to kind of open that up as a discussion point. If you're watching this, we're at the back end of the show. This is something we would have done front loaded so people can kind of jump into the conversation. But has COVID and have the events that have been created in its wake, such as DC's Fandom, such as Netflix Day, which, to be honest, was a bit of a damn squib anyway, Disney Plus Day, which was promoted on YouTube of all places. That made no sense. Have they got their own inroads and their own audience that they don't have to maintain the audience groundswell that something like San Diego Comic-Con would afford them? We saw it at the likes of MCM Comic-Con in London when they had their physical event. The studios just didn't show up. They felt that it wasn't worth their time or investment. I think it's going to be interesting. The question about those studios that have always turned around and said, we love Comic-Con. We love the excitement. We love the audience. We love you, man. And then showing up and showing a trailer and being seeming very, very happy to be there. I think it's going to be interesting to see who actually shows up at a convention moving forward, because those will be the people that actually do love Comic-Con and not just being dragged there by the studio. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Into the Blue Mister, I'm quite surprised Lawless was announced in Bristol for April, May. Great UK guest list, but will again be very wary of attending. So that's April. I think, like I say, my first convention is April. It's Wales Comic Con. I'm going to be heading to Telford again. Yeah, I can't believe I'm having to say the words again, but we'll see what happens over the course of the next couple of months. I'm getting bored of saying that statement. I've been saying that now for 1.5 years. We're coming up to a 2-year anniversary of the first real cases and the first real effects being felt of COVID. It's a big deal. I mean, okay. So let's not forget, cons are for the fans. If big players start leaving, fans could turn on them. If you just stop coming because you think the fans love you too much, maybe their downfall. Yeah. I'm trying to work out if they're wondering if it's a case of what's the backlash here. I mean, can we weather the storm of several thousand fans getting grumpy on Twitter? You know what I mean? I think we need to recognize how kind of insular the Comic-Con's world is. In the past, it was a way for the stars to show up on stage, show a trailer, and that was their big coming out. They could show the footage on their YouTube channels. They could show the trailers. They could run it in Empire, run it in Total Film, run it in Deadline, and whatever. And that was their way of generating the buzz. That's all about the buzz. Let's be perfectly honest here. I mean, when I have attended San Diego Comic-Con and you've got the press seats directly in front of you, and you realize that 2/3 of that is the marketing team from the studio that's on stage at whatever point. It's not just the press. It's a case it's about generating that buzz. At which point you then have to kind of ask where we are, where the face of Comic-Cons are. People have always, the old school fans of Comic-Cons have turned around and said that we have long wanted that time when Hollywood can go away and we can take Comic-Cons back to what they were. That's a bollocks line to start with anyway, because Hollywood's been part of Comic-Cons from the word go. So let's ignore that bit. But anyway, that whole element of taking it back to its core, we may not have much of a choice. We may see the face of that regardless. I'm really curious to see how the summer's going to go, whether the studios are going to play ball, whether their bottom line has been hit enough that they're going to have to come to conventions, maybe, to try and generate the interest. I mean, we're talking about, say, for example, with Disney and Pixar and their latest effort, Turning Red, going straight to Disney Plus, which I'm not happy about at all anyway, because I think it's shitting on a lot of hard work from Pixar animators. See, my mind's wandering all over the place today. It's a little bit shotgun. I do apologize. But yeah, Toby, time will tell. Profit and promotion versus germophobia. I use the term loosely for the lack of a better one. I think, you know what? It's not that loosely, mate. I think you've pretty much hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, absolutely. Michael P is asking the question. He hasn't put a question mark there, but he's quite right. WonderCon, first weekend in April. Not that far away. It's just ridiculous. And even sooner than that, Andrew English, I think my first con is London Film and Comic Con Spring at the end of February. Now, that's going to be an even more interesting convention because LFCC and London Film and Comic Con is not necessarily known as a news generating show. It's more of it's not a proactive show. It's a passive show. It's about signatures and autographs and meeting vintage stars, meeting new stars, but not necessarily generating news, which is where your panels come in, where your Hollywood Reporter appearances and interviews crop up. That's the delineation between London Film and Comic Con and, say, other conventions. At which point then it does become a little bit of a cattle market to get those signatures and get those autographs, and it gets very packed very quickly. It's a different kind of show. It's a different kind of event. At the end of February, I think maybe just a little bit too soon. Maybe. Into the Blue Mister. Is it now that a lot of people who've had their shots and boosters now see COVID as the flu? It's another element. Is it a case of we are starting to hear whispers of Boris Johnson's approach now. He's been wanting herd immunity from the start. Let's be fair. Let's be honest here. He's been wanting herd immunity from the word go. So he's turning around, and apparently in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be hearing that free lateral flow tests are going to be discontinued. They're only going to be for schools and for emergency or for high risk scenarios. It's now a case of, are we in 2022 right now, are we going to have to start living with COVID? At which point, how much are people going to adapt? How much are people going to actually change their habits? Who's still washing their hands for 20 seconds? Who's still sterilizing their hands here? Please put your comments in because I am. I'm still singing happy birthday, guys. My hands are as soft as a baby's ass. Yeah, Shane Chebsey. It's really hard to predict how things will develop. We're approaching the 2-year anniversary of this thing, and we're still saying this line. That's where the frustration, I think, is going to kick in. But there we go. Second Union's joining us, but let's go a little bit more lighter. Yeah, Second Union crew, hello there, and Nerds Unite. Listen, Second Union, it's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome along. Hopefully this little section here, it's been a 10-minute chat where hopefully it'll stir a bit of a conversation up. I'm going to possibly even trim this and just post this separate. Where does fandom and where do conventions sit in a world where people are going to have to live with COVID? Yeah. Are you still going to be wearing your masks at your conventions? And when will that stop? Yeah. But I think more importantly for myself, it's going to be a case of how are we going to, who are we going to see at these shows? I'm a gnat's testy away from booking my flights to San Diego. We are going. It's a case of them booking us hotels and all of that nonsense and getting up and running with that. But what show will I expect when I get to San Diego? That's the question. Right. That's our show for today. Thank you so much indeed for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much indeed to Will Potter for joining us. Do head to that Kickstarter. It is well worth checking out. I mean, we've seen and shown you what Geezer's all about. You know what Philip Bond can do. You hopefully will get a sense of now what Will can do with his story. So yeah, very much looking forward to seeing that really blow through its. Hopefully, we've added a couple more coins to the coffers in its last couple of days of its Kickstarter. So there we go. Final couple of comments. Here we go. Shane Chebsey, if I was a betting man, which I'm not, I would say that risk to healthy vaccinated person will be deemed acceptable by the majority of people by April. I could live with that. I would hope that's the case. Dune didn't do that well in the theaters because there was no promotion. I think Dune didn't do too well in the theaters as well because the fans went to see it and they loved it. The non-fans went to see it and it was possibly a little too dry and heavy for them. It was epic in scope, but I think maybe it just kind of hit them a little bit. I don't know. Solicitor Smeg, I don't think people yelling at Hollywood out of cons understand what that means. It's a trickle-down effect. Having big studios and celebs leads to small creators getting eyes on their stuff. There we go. That's it. That's what it is. Absolutely. I mean, we kind of saw that with the virtual cons as well. The eyeballs will get to those topics of conversation and those panels, and those books that perhaps would not have received those eyeballs. That's what a convention is. For me, is what it's for. But there we go. Okay. Thank you very much indeed for watching. We've got ourselves another special guest. Yeah, okay, sorry about that. Into the Blue Mister. June comment, a little too dry. Yeah, okay, you're absolutely right. We have a special guest next week. A busy boy. Matt Dunford is somebody who is currently a brand manager for a company in the US for the trading cards. He's also got himself, he's still running as a main player in San Diego Comic Fest, and he's going to be joining us next week for our episode next Sunday. Hopefully you can join us at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT, of course, on the 16th. Please do join us from next weekend as we talk to Matt Dunford. I think, as always, it's a pleasure to have him on the show, so hopefully you can join us for that. From myself to you, stay safe, do what it takes to protect you and your loved ones, wash your hands, wear your masks, and we'll see you next Sunday on Talkin Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.